Who are you? Sounds like a loaded question, right? Usually, whenever I ask someone this question, the response that I get it's something like, this is what I do, or they'll go into what their career field is, what their current job is. These are the things that we normally answer this question with utilizing our title, our gifting, our qualifications. But when I ask, "Who are you?" I want to know simply, who are you? It seems like it's a really difficult question to answer because we don't have many qualifiers in this life that generally gauge who we are easily. Usually, people are classified by their talents. You remember being in high school, and if you were gifted in math, you were probably considered a mathlete. If you were gifted in sports, then you were considered an athlete. If you had any other types of gifting and talents, there were always a qualification for you, whether you were on the nerd spectrum or you were on the athletic jock spectrum. There's always a qualification for you. Well, you get out into the real world, as we call it, and immediately your classifications, your qualifications have nothing to do, not as much to do with your physical capabilities, but similar to the nerds in high school, it has a lot to do with your intellectual abilities, your capabilities, scholastic capabilities, where you graduated from college, what career field are you in, and this is how we qualify and quantify who it is that we are. But what happens when that's gone, when that title's gone, when that title shifts? I believe personally that that's the reason why, as a nation, that's why we have such a difficult time during the transitions between one job to the next, because what we measured our life by is now in flux. And so when somebody asks me, "Who am I?" and I look them in the eye and I'm currently in between jobs, how do I quantify who it is that I am? It's really a game that my wife and I that we play now. Anytime that we get a chance to get away from the kids and go on a date night, it's usually one of the first questions when we really settle down. If we're sitting out to dinner, we sit down and we really settle down at the table. And the first question, we see who can get it out the quickest, is who are you? I remember on our first date, I remember asking my wife this question. I was picking her up. We were going to this event at Cowboy Stadium, and so I go to pick her up, and she gets into my car, and we began to drive off, and we started heading off to our destination, to Cowboy Stadium, and I remember it being very, very quiet, kind of awkward silence in there, in the car. And so in that moment, I thought to myself, well, I don't want to ask her just, some cheesy date question. We're kind of locked in this drive, in this car together for the next 45 minutes. So this better be good. And so kind of being snarky, I lay out my big question and I say, "So who is Casey? I mean, who are you really?" And she, much to my surprise, because this is a question that a lot of times whenever I got the opportunity to mentor young men, this was one of the questions that I love to ask them, and I felt it was very pivotal, but I didn't see it in a dating aspect of it being important. But I learned something great that night. My wife, now wife, turns to me and she says, how much would you like to know? Like, how deep do you want me to go? And it completely caught me off guard because the response that I usually get is occupation, is talent, is gifting. And here was a woman who really understood that who she was so much more. It was so much greater than her occupation. It was so much more than what she could possibly do on any musical scale or athletic scale or even intellectual scale. She knew who she was. So I'm here today talking to you, asking you this question. Who are you? Who are you? Now I know, you may dabble in this, you may deal in that, you may have expertise in this area, but who are you really? The center of who you are is going to be the most important driver in your life. I like to liken it to the string on a bow. The way that I view our lives as human beings, we're such amazing creation, human beings, and I believe that every life, every single life ever born, ever created, has a purpose, and so with that purpose, I believe that our lives are so similar to an arrow, because you know that when you put an arrow on the string of a bow, that you're doing it for a purpose. You're not haphazardly placing it there. You have the desire to shoot a target, to hit a destination with that arrow, and that's the whole reason behind you placing it on that string. Well, that string is your why. That string, because as you begin to pull that string back on that bow, you're gonna have to determine exactly how far you want the arrow to go. So if your life is the arrow, then your why is the string. All the tension that comes with that why, all the tension that comes with the who are you, why are you important in this world, will determine just how far that you go. It may take you some struggle. It may take you going through some junk and pushing through for you to really understand exactly why it is that you were created. A lot of you out there may not know my story. As a young boy, when I was 19, I was molested, and then subsequently afterwards, a couple years after that, my mom was remarried to a man who was abusive to herself and myself, and I took a lot of the beatings that my brother and sister that they were spared, with being the youngest, and so I was a lot more helpless. But through all of that, through pushing through all of that, I learned that my family was the greatest anchor in my life. I learned that what I believed was absolutely the most paramount foundation that I had to hang on to. And everything that happened in my life that could have possibly driven me insane, that could have driven me in any other direction than a direction to succeed, contrary to those opportunities, contrary to those happenstances, to the abuse, to the molestation, I learned so much in my life that all of this was preparation for you. It was preparation for the people who say, I can't deal. The people who say, I can't handle it. I don't understand why. I don't understand why. But I do understand that who I am was built for you. It was built for me. It was built for anyone in my life that I'm meant to connect with, that's so much greater than just myself, because my life matters. But in the tension of being molested, it pulled my string. In the tension of being abused, it pulled my string. In the tension of growing up in an impoverished area, it pulled my string. And it put me in the position that my trajectory and the distance of how far I can and I will go in this life was all determined simply off of, this is who you are. Jeremy is a conqueror. Jeremy is one who supersedes his environment. Jeremy is an intellect, not because someone determined by a degree, but because that's what he determined by his exercise to gain knowledge, by his exercise to pursue understanding, and to submit himself to be in the position to gain wisdom. So who are you? Your life, I'm sure your life looks a little bit gritty. I'm sure your life looks a little bit torn and tattered. Some of you may even be out there who feel like you're used goods and you're absolutely worthless. Well, let me tell you this. Some of the greatest men and women in the world in our history books walked through a lot of damage, a lot of hurt, so that, or actually turning that and living in spite of those actions and turning those things, turning those coals into diamonds, turning that pain into passion and pursuit and into success. And they turn that tension into a propeller to take them further than they ever desired, than they ever imagined, than they ever dreamed. Take this time. If you need to rewind and listen to this again and again, I want you to get this into your innermost being. And I want you to ask yourself, until you feel like you've come to a comfortable place of understanding who you truly are. Who am I? I said before that my wife and I do this exercise, and we do this consistently when we go out on our date nights, because life is going to offer up something new for you constantly. It's always going to bring you changes. It's always going to bring you diversity. It's always going to bring you opportunities and happenstances. So who you are will be foundation, and what you're doing will shift. But in every season, you'll learn something new about yourself that you didn't understand before, that will propel you further and further and further, and it will show you just how much purpose and passion you have in your life that others need. You weren't created for yourself. Your pain was not created for you. God wants to use you to be able to reach more people and to do more things, and to do it with a heart of empathy. And if that means that pain has to come and that you triumph past that pain, then so be it. That may not be the story for everyone. I'm not going to give you a cliche that all things happen for a reason. I just know that in my life, my pain will never be a waste. And I hope it takes you to a greater place, because I was able to push past, because your friends were able to push past, because your parents were able to push past, because the leaders in your life were able to push past and show you that your pain is not the end. So know who you are, live who you are, and give who you are. This is what it means to be relatable. Hi, this is Jeremy Gaston. Did you enjoy this episode? If so, feel free to share it with a friend and subscribe to our next episode. If you'd like free books and other materials on how to create deeper relationships and have healthier friendships and to create better employment, be sure to stop by my website, jrmygstn.com, and fill in your name and your email address, and you'll receive free content every week. And as always, go out there and serve better, to love better, to live better.